Hi there, and welcome to Grimwit with Dimwits. I'm Blondie.
And I'm T.
And we're off to another episode in July. Yay!
I could tell you didn't know what to say there.
I
Stop
didn't.
trying to cover it up.
I didn't.
You had a me moment.
I did. I totally did. But I did want to ask you, have you heard about the whole Netflix canceling thing?
No, and I have Netflix, so
I know.
What's up?
Apparently, America's last line of defense on X and Facebook made a post that said Netflix loses more than 6 million subscribers within hours of its big donation announcement.
Ooh, now I'm curious.
Right? Then after that, what else happened? There was $2 billion were lost. Stock fell 40%. And then from there went Netflix donated $7 million to Kamala Harris. And
really? I was just thinking this couldn't possibly be a political donation.
Let me preface this by saying this isn't a political thing because I believe people should be able to do whatever they want to do.
Exactly.
So let me get kind of through the story and I'll tell you where I'm going with this. In actuality, what happened was Reed Hastings. Now, he is a co-founder of Netflix and he still owns mega stock. So he's still getting paychecks from it, but he's the one that donated $7 million to a super PAC that is backing Kamala Harris. So it was him that did the donation. Personally, it's his money. He can do whatever he wants. I have no problem with it. But what ended up happening was on social media, on Facebook, on Instagram, and Threads, people were saying, cancel Netflix. And one particular thread, it literally said, boycott Netflix. So I read some of the 168 comments, and it ranged from, what are you talking about, to no, to get your facts straight kind of thing. Or, yeah, I canceled it last night. I canceled it this morning. But based on the fact that this really wasn't true as far as Netflix making the donation, I did some research and there was no 6 million subscribers that unsubscribed. They did not lose $2 billion and their stocks did not go down 40%. From Wednesday to today, it only went down 2%.
I don't understand why people do this.
I don't either, but do you remember that game we used to play when we were kids called Telephone? You'd have a group of friends and you'd start on one end and you'd say a statement and then you'd whisper in each other's ear, go down the line from one to the other. And by the time you got to the, say, sixth person, it was completely different than how it was when it started. This is what it kind of reminded me of. So, I mean, I love social media. Obviously, social media does great things for us, but it just does crack me up that people will put things on there without doing research. I've boycotted, or not even boycotted, I've stopped using a few products because I don't agree with what the business has done.
I know who you're talking about.
There's a few. But I just thought, do some research, guys.
Right. Well, as soon as you started to say it was a political thing, I thought, oh, do we even really want to go there?
And you know me, I don't talk politics or religion. That's personal. I don't even talk that with you.
Because we have different views.
We have to, and that's fine. As far as both of those things go, I think it's very personal and it's not something that you should hoist on somebody else.
I completely agree. And you know what? I'm going to toot our horn and say we have been friends for an exceptionally long time. And with our different views on such important matters, look, people, it can still happen. And we still love and adore each other and respect each other's opinions, no matter what.
Absolutely. That's what makes a person an individual.
We have to appreciate the differences in all of us.
Absolutely.
And right or wrong. And if they're wrong and you don't want to be part of it, don't be part of it. But it shouldn't be for a specific reason like politics or religion. Hopefully people are bigger than that.
I fully agree. Anyway, speaking of stirring things up, I know we've got a story that will get our blood boiling.
We're not stirring anything up. This bonehead stirred everything up, not us. It stirred everything up. Are we ready to talk about the story?
Absolutely.
All right, let's do this. Let's let the grim begin. So this week's story is about Wade Wilson. He's been all over the news lately, and he is one of the most disturbingly interesting characters I've seen in quite some time. And when I say seen, looking at him is exactly what caught my attention. And now I hate to point out the obvious because we know that everything he's done to his stupid looking face is specifically for that reason, attention.
Stupid looking face.
Can you tell how I feel about this already?
Have an opinion.
He wants to stand out from the crowd and not just be another pretty and pale-faced, mediocre, run-of-the-mill convicted murderer because, they're so mundanely vanilla. Not Wade. He's apparently special.
And what kind of special? I mean, that I'd like to know. A special what?
That's what I want to know, too. Mr. Special didn't have any of those ridiculous Raggedy Andy-looking face tats upon his arrest in 2019, but he's obviously been making improvements along the way, inking them out one at a time. Maybe he's hoping to be cast in the next killer Raggedy Ann film or Disney's Lilo and Stitch, the prison episode, Stitch the Snitch. He'd be perfect for that role.
And I have to admit, I don't think I've ever seen a complete Lilo and Stitch, but I have seen snippets of Lil Ho and Snitch, the adult version.
I have not, but
it's quite saucy.
It sounds quite saucy. Oh my gosh, that's so funny. But as much as I hate to admit it, he definitely sucked me into his little ragdoll face scheme. He's tattooed his face, neck, and hands with all kinds of nonsense, racist tats, and corny scarecrow mouth stitches. I'm assuming these ludicrous tattoos are supposed to be intimidating, but he definitely missed the mark on that one. Anti-Defamation League research fellow Christopher Magyarix tells Newsweek that some of the tats on his head and neck are, quote, blatantly white supremacist, end quote. The number 14 is on the right side of his neck for the white supremacist mantra known as the 14 words, which are, quote, we must secure the existence of our people and a future for white children, end quote. Magyarix said, you know what? I'm not even mad about that one. I do understand that people want to save the race. That's not a crime or even a horrible thing as long as you don't try to kill everyone else to accomplish it. Because that's where the horrible part comes in, people.
That is a definite.
Wilson also has the number 88 on the left side of his neck, which symbolizes the 8th letter of the alphabet, H. Twice equals HH, for Heil Hitler. The combination of the two numeric codes, 1488, is commonly used by white supremacists of all types, end quote, according to Magyarix. Who knew? But if you're so proud of it, then why write it in code? Nazis got to keep it real.
I think that would make him a badass punk.
Right. Wilson also has 2 swastika tattoos, one on his right scalp and another under his right eye. The swastika is a symbol of Nazi Germany and its leader, Adolf Hitler. Side note. Now, explaining who Adolf Hitler was might sound like something I shouldn't have to explain, but just the other day at work, the Night Stalker, Richard Ramirez, was brought up and one of our 20-somethings had no idea who he was. Never even heard of him. So I'm going to not make assumptions anymore.
Never heard of him?
Never heard of him.
Wow.
And she's from Southern California.
I thought he was just kind of like ingrained in the history books at this point.
That's what I thought. I was like, huh? What? Wade also has other tats, including, and Blondie, you're going to love this one, TTG on his forehead, which stands for time to go.
Okay, liking it.
Look at that. Wilson has a TTG tat honoring our very first episode, It's Time to Go. Now, that's a real fan right there. Or it may also mean ready to fight, something stupid like that. But that's boring.
Aw, just what we want to be associated with. I think I'm good without a shout out from him, though.
Hey, I'll take the exposure anywhere we can get it.
What did they say? No news, no news is bad news, or bad news is, how do they
No
say that?
news is good news.
No, even bad news is good news, or
Okay, it's bad publicity is better than no
no publicity.
publicity at
There we
all.
go. There we go.
God, I couldn't get the word publicity out. Around Wilson's left eye, the ink reads, "Why so serious?" And the words, "ha ha ha," are tattooed right underneath. This may be a reference to Heath Ledger's iconic line in the 2008 movie, The Dark Knight, as the Joker. Ledger's next line in the film is, quote, "He sticks the blade in my mouth. Let's put a smile on that face," end quote, which could also be Wilson's inspiration for the stitched-on smile tattoo around his disgusting mouth. I personally thought he was going for a scary Raggedy Andy kind of thing, but maybe not.
And I was thinking more Billy Butcherson from Hocus Pocus. Did you ever see that?
I think I saw it many, many moons ago. I don't even know who that guy is.
He was a zombie that came back to life.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. Wilson also has, and I'm going to spell it out so you don't think I'm talking about a loaf here, BRED, bread for war, tat in big letters under his chin, insinuating that he's some kind of kick-ass warrior. But let's review. Notice how all his victims were cute little petite women? Wilson is 6 foot, 6 inches tall, and a big boy. So if you're such a badass warrior, where are all the big badass dude victims? You know, all those guys who would have had a chance to, I don't know, fight back? Oh yeah, that's right. There are none. Maybe his tat wasn't finished, and it's supposed to read, "Inbred for war." I'm just saying.
Do you hear the banjos?
Mr. Special has personally never expressed his reasons for his zany little body art. During his trial, his defense team, who had the most difficult job ever with this fool making it worse every time he showed up with a new tattoo, decided to use this absurdity as a tool to show that their client was definitely mentally unstable. You think?
Oh, he knew what he was doing.
You think so?
I do.
I don't think so. I think he's an idiot.
I didn't say he wasn't an idiot. I just said he knew what he was doing.
Adding to his notoriety, the internet has dubbed him the Deadpool Killer because he shares the same name, Wade Wilson, as the Marvel character.
Poor Ryan Reynolds. And he spent 20 years getting that movie made.
And this guy just came and mucked it all up.
Right.
So let's go back to a warm day on October 6th, 2019 in Fort Myers, Florida. Melissa Lynn Montez and her 25-year-old boyfriend of 6 months, Wade Wilson, wanted to go out and party one night, so they headed to the Buddha Bar in Cape Coral for fun. They drove there in Melissa's 2015 gray Dodge Hellcat. Nice car.
Very sweet.
It was very pretty. But when they got to the bar, they got into a huge fight.
God, you have an heart attack.
Sorry. I couldn't hold it. I was still talking and it just came out. Oh, my Lord. Okay. But when they got to the bar, they got into a huge fight over Wade wanting to leave and go to a friend's house. But Melissa was not having it. So Wade got pissed off and asked for her keys to grab something out of her car. She gave him the keys and then immediately regretted that. So she ran outside and sure enough, her Hellcat was leaving the bar. She was really pissed about being abandoned at the bar with no transportation. So she called her friend and was picked up and ended up going to her friend's place. Melissa ended up passing out and sleeping over, but when she woke up the next morning, she saw a bunch of missed calls and texts from Wade from a new number. He called again, and when she finally picked up, he was livid that she hadn't been available all night. So he said he needed to meet with her immediately.
So let me get this straight. He stole her car, abandoned her, and was pissed because she wasn't available when he called?
That's absolutely correct.
The audacity.
Right. It's like, who do you think you are?
Big one of those things, or two of those things.
Knowing how Wade was and that he could be violent, Melissa was nervous to meet him, but she really wanted to get her car back in one piece. So she agreed to meet him out in public in the parking lot of Mila's spa, which is where she worked. Melissa was worried enough to even ask her friend to come with her as a safety measure. So she did.
Like we say, never go alone. So good for
Mm.
Melissa.
Well, yes, until you hear the next part of the story.
I'm giving her credit too soon.
Yes, you are. But as soon as Wade arrived, Melissa knew something was wrong because he wasn't driving her car. He was in a car she'd never seen before. Confused, Melissa walked over to the little black car's driver's window and asked Wade where her car was. She said, quote, he was calm and just kept saying to get in the car. But then it escalated quickly, end quote. When she wouldn't just get in the car, he became violent and he actually grabbed her by the front of her dress and tried to forcefully pull her into the car while he was still in the driver's seat. She was scared and decided to stiffen her body and hold up her arms and go plank style so that she wouldn't fit. It worked, and he couldn't pull her in. He gets really frustrated and keeps trying to pull on her. He even pulls her hair and anything he can grab to try to get her to bend her body and force her in. But thankfully, her dress starts to rip, and he loses his grip on her. So now he gets out of the car, but forgets to put the car in park. And while he's struggling with Melissa, the car rolls forward and grazes both of their legs as he tackles her to the ground. Now he starts beating on her small 5'2" frame mercilessly. Wade is a very big guy, and he punches her, slaps her, and chokes her repeatedly.
So where is this friend? And yeah, like I'm going to get in the car after he tries to kidnap me.
That's why I was saying you gave her credit too soon. She brought a useless friend. And I couldn't find out why the friend didn't help, where she was, anything about the friend. But I would have jumped in that loose car and ran his sorry ass over. That's a perfectly good weapon right there.
That's right.
Opportunity, ladies, opportunity.
He's 6'6". He probably would have jumped over it.
You might be right. Then she says he starts to drag her and she's trying desperately to reason with him. But when she looks into his eyes, she can see, quote, there's nobody behind those eyes, so there's no point in trying to reason with him, end quote. He drags her near a staircase and she's able to link her arms into it to prevent him from dragging her up it. And at this point, a crowd is gathering and Melissa is just waiting for anybody to intervene and stop this assault. But absolutely nobody comes to her rescue. The crowd just watches as Wade forcefully pulls her up the stairs to the second level, which is where Mila's spa is located.
Wow, I'm surprised nobody tried to help her.
You know, that's really sad. What has the world come to?
Right.
I'm not a very big person. I'd have jumped in. I'm sorry. I would have. No way I would have sat there and watched it happen.
At least yell at him and distract him to let her get away.
Exactly. Jump on his back. Do what you got to do.
Get in that car that drove by.
That car is my friend at this point. I would have totally taken advantage of that car. Melissa again tries to reason with him and tells him, quote, let's just go into the spa where we can talk about it in a safe place, end quote. But before they get there, Melissa is able to break free from him and runs into a nearby business for help. Moments later, the Fort Myers police arrived, but Wade had already left the scene in the black Nissan Versa. The police talk to Melissa and get information regarding Wade. The police put out an alert for his capture. Now, I just want to point out that on this day, where I'm sure Melissa thought she was going to die, she showed remarkable instincts and bravery in the face of fear.
For that petite little thing, she sure did. But though I'd imagine adrenaline is probably just coursing through her body, too.
Yep, you're probably right. People can do crazy things when their adrenaline is going.
The lady that lifted the car off her child.
I could see myself doing that. Seriously, I would. When interviewed at the station, Melissa informed officers that she and Wade had only been together for 6 months after meeting through a friend. They had lived together for the first 2 months, and then Wade was incarcerated for the last 3.5 months. But they stayed together after his release.
I would seriously rethink my friends.
And your own decision-making skills.
Exactly.
Melissa had heard that Wade had a violent past, But that's not what frightened her. What terrified her were her own personal experiences with him. Melissa knew not to get into the car with him that day. She feels that if he had gotten her in, she wouldn't be alive today. So why do women stay? This couple didn't have a long history or children or any of the usual reasons. So I truly don't get it.
Me either. And she knew all of that in advance, and she still went out with him to begin with?
And then waited for him to get out of jail?
No words.
Melissa also gave the police the unfamiliar phone numbers that Wade had been calling her from right before the assault. So police ran the phone numbers and found that one of them belonged to 35-year-old Christine Ann Melton of Cape Coral. Police went to Christine's home for an interview, but when they arrived, there were local police and yellow tape already on scene. The Cape Coral police confirmed that they were investigating the murder of a young woman who was a waitress and lived in the home. Christine was described by those closest to her as a, quote, protector who loved fiercely, a precious soul, and an irreplaceable force, a once-in-a-lifetime person, end quote.
Melissa needs to find friends like her.
We all need friends like her. She sounds like she was an amazing person. The police also reported that Christine's vehicle, a black 2019 Nissan Versa, was also missing. This discovery intensified the search and expanded the efforts to urgently locate Wade Wilson. Later that day, and only about 5 miles away from the crime scene, a Fort Myers police officer spotted Wade in the stolen vehicle parked in a Joe's Crab Shack parking lot. The officer approached the vehicle and attempted to block it, but the car was very small. After speaking to a shirtless Wade, who was sitting in the car, claiming to be waiting for his girlfriend, the officer called for assistance and tried to keep Wade calm until backup arrived. But Wade was acting sketchy and eventually got around the police vehicle and took off and got away.
Wow. Tiny little car outran the police car. That's amazing.
The cop was out of his car. It's not like he was even in his car. So he outran an old dude outside of his car. Well, because they showed it, he was an older gentleman.
A mature gentleman.
Wade heads to a business belonging to a friend of a friend that was about 6 miles away. He approached a man by the name of Josh, who he barely knew. He begged Josh for money to buy a ticket to get out of town. When he refuses to give him the money, Wade says, quote, "No, you don't understand, Josh. I killed people last night," end quote.
Man, I would have given him the money just so he would leave.
I don't know if I would have given him the money. I don't know what I would have done.
I would have given him the money and then called the police.
Yeah, he's probably pretty scary at that moment. Josh is shocked and steps outside to immediately call 911. Josh went on to tell the 911 operator that Wade was at his office and that he had confessed to hurting a girl, killing people, and all kind of crazy things. Wade was acting very odd, driving a stolen car, and seemed extremely unstable. Cape Coral officers arrived quickly, but Wade had fled once again. I saw this as a prime example that Wade was such a coward and he wouldn't just steal the money from another man.
Good point. I mean, he'll beat up a 5'2" girl, but not a guy.
Exactly. And he was so desperate and he still wouldn't do it.
Puss.
During this time, another woman by the name of Diane Ruiz, 43 years old and a mother of 2, had been reported missing. Diane never showed up for a work shift at the Moose Lodge, but her purse had been found abandoned along a roadway. It was also noted that a black Nissan Versa was seen in and around the area at the time Diane went missing. Police dug a little deeper and were able to get a hold of Wade's biological father, Stephen Testaseca, and asked him to contact them should Wade try to reach out for help. Wade's biological father did not raise him and didn't know who he was until Wade was 18 and wanted to meet him. Apparently, Wade's parents were very young teenagers when they got pregnant and gave him up for adoption. Stephen couldn't even remember his exact age when Wade was born, but he said he was about 14 or 15, and Wade's mother was a year younger than him. So how do you forget how young you are when you not only have a baby, but also give him up for adoption. That's odd, right?
Very odd. And so nonchalant about life.
That would be something I could never forget.
Well, he didn't get birth, so maybe that's why.
Maybe. It still should have been a more important moment in his life, but who knows?
Apparently not.
Stephen says Wade contacted him and they started a father-son relationship. But unfortunately, it quickly turned into Wade just asking him for help all the time. On the witness stand, Stephen testified that Wade had called him and confessed that because of him, quote, 2 people would not be coming back because I'm a killer, end quote. His father said he didn't believe him at first because Wade lied a lot.
Well, that's a nice thing to put on a person.
I know, right? Here you go. Here's all my troubles. Carry them.
Yeah, you couldn't remember how old you were when I was born, so here, you made me kill these people.
Right? But Wade ended up calling him again and again, giving up more gruesome details about what he had done to the 2 women. Wade claimed that he had met a woman named Christine at a bar, and they ended up back at her house to party. But when she fell asleep, he decided to climb on top of her and choke her to death. He actually said, I choked that.
What a wackadoodle.
People. After killing her, he hung out at her house for a while before realizing that he needed to get rid of her body. So he rolled up Christine's body to put her into the trunk of her car. But by this point, rigor mortis had already set in and she was not flexible enough to fit into the trunk. So he left her body in the house and fled in the car.
I wonder how long he was sitting in the house for a rigor mortis to set in.
It doesn't take long for rigor mortis. It's much quicker than you think.
I thought it would be at least a couple hours.
We'll have to look it up. I thought it was within like the first 2.
You might be
and
right.
I might be completely wrong. I'm just doing that off of memory. I just know it was quicker than I thought.
Our brain, I think, has rigor mortis right now.
I think my mouth does too. Jeez.
It's got its moments.
While fleeing one murder, he spotted 43-year-old Diane Ruiz walking to work all alone. So he pulled over and asked her for directions. Diane was a sweetheart and was somehow convinced to get into the car. Once she was in the car, though, he immediately reached over and choked her out while he was driving. Her body went limp, and he started looking for a place to dump her. Once he pulled over and pulled her body out of the car, he realized she was still breathing. According to his father, Wade said he got back into the car and decided to finish her off by running her over repeatedly until she, quote, looked like spaghetti, end quote. I wanted to make a comment here, but I really have no words.
What the hell? I mean, it would honestly be nice if someone did that to him with a semi-truck.
That's just
Did he ever give any reasons why he just felt the need to kill these people?
He says, I don't know if I've said it yet, but he does say he just wanted to. That was it. Because, think about it. He got her into the car and immediately choked her, thinking that he killed her. At least the way it sounded, it didn't sound like it was more than minutes. So that's all he wanted from her, was to get her in the car and choke her to death.
Wow, dude.
How do you pick someone up just to go, I'm going to kill you?
Again, it wasn't a man.
Yeah, again, exactly. Not a man. And this was a petite woman as well.
Yeah, he's badass.
What is Sanders' chin? Inbred for war?
That's what you're making it out to be.
That's what I saw.
Here, cue the banjos.
I just can't with this guy. Stephen said that as a father, he initially wanted to help his son, but after hearing the lack of remorse and disturbing details of what his son did, he faced an unimaginable emotional conflict. Here he had a chance to restart his relationship with the son he gave up as a teenager, but now this. He did understand the gravity of the situation and that Wade was capable of doing this again, and there was no way he could live with that. He needed to stop him from doing further harm, so he turned his son in. I can't imagine having to do that, but he definitely made the right call.
Especially after his lack of remorse and his describing intentional details. That's
Yeah.
just crazy. And I find him saying as a father. So he didn't see him for the first 18 years of his life. And how old is he now? He's in his 20s, right?
He was about 25, I think, when this
Twen-
was happening.
okay, so he had a somewhat spotty relationship because Wade kept asking him for things.
Hmm.
So as a father, I mean, say 7 years. I mean,
Yeah.
yes, he was biologically, yes, but how much of a father really was he?
And how much of a son was Wade?
Exactly.
Sounds like they were just trying to create a relationship, but a relationship never truly formed.
Mm-hmm. He's giving
Oh,
himself
well.
credit.
He is, but I mean, I feel for the guy. He didn't ask for any of this, and he probably would have went forward with the relationship had this not happened.
Yeah, you're probably right.
Never know. Wade's father told his son that he would help him by sending an Uber to pick him up and bring him to safety. So Wade gave him the address of the home that he had broken into while he was on the run. Fortunately, that home was unoccupied because a couple that lived there had left for a trip to Ohio that very morning. Wow, what are the chances?
Someone was looking out for them.
Agreed. Once he had the address, Wade's father contacted the police. Law enforcement arrived and Wade barricaded himself for about 30 minutes in the house before finally coming out. Wade was transported to the Fort Myers jail. His first phone call was to his ex-girlfriend, Melissa, the one that he viciously assaulted. And he confessed to her that he had murdered Christine and Diane. Melissa said, quote, "He admitted over the phone to me that he killed both those women. He strangled both of them. He said he just felt like it and the drugs messed him up." End quote.
I hope he's not looking for a I didn't do it plea. Not guilty.
I don't think he ever claims that.
Well, obviously, I mean, think of all the people he's told. This is the third person now
Yeah, I think he's kind of showing off.
because that's impressive.
This crime left the community very unsettled. So 6 weeks following the deaths of Christine and Diane, the state attorney's office set up a press conference regarding the case against Wade Wilson. State Attorney Amira Fox and Police Chief Dave Newland announced the indictment of Wade Stephen Wilson for the murders of Christine Melton, age 35, and Diane Ruiz, age 43, who were both from Cape Coral. Wade was indicted for 2 counts of first-degree premeditated murder, 1 count each of battery, grand theft of a motor vehicle, burglary of a dwelling, and first-degree petty theft. Christine Melton was found dead in her Cape Coral home on October 7, 2019. The body of Diane Ruiz was found on October 10th in a field behind a Sam's Club warehouse store in Cape Coral 4 days after she was reported missing.
So no one saw him driving over her or dumping the body. He had to have done it more than once, and then he had to dump her.
Well, maybe he did this actually in the field because he thought he was dumping her when he found out she was alive.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, I didn't think about that either till right now, but that's probably because there's no way you could have picked her up after what he did to her.
Mm-hmm.
So disturbing. The press conference was to bring a small comfort to the victims' families and the surrounding communities. These women were preyed upon and it shook the community. The press conference was also to honor the people involved in bringing Wade Wilson in. They were patient, courageous, tenacious, meticulous, and definitely deserved some recognition. I kind of felt like this was very considerate for the state attorney's office to personally give an accurate update on such a huge case, because I'm sure people were unnerved, and I can only imagine how much inaccurate information was out there on social media or the news or whatever. So kudos to them.
Exactly. And like we said earlier, with telephone, you
Yeah.
hear one thing, and by the time it gets to social media, it's changed drastically. It's a good thing that they were updating them.
With the right stuff. Wade was arrested in the early hours on October 8th, 2019, and held at Lee County Jail without bail. His trial took a long time due to frequent continuances and pretrial motions. Oh, the bureaucracy.
You gotta love it.
But don't feel bad for Wade, because he made himself very busy while in jail. He joined a white supremacist gang and gave himself a much-needed makeover. Along with all the rest of the tattoos on his body, He decided to purdy up his face with some Nazi symbols because, heck, why not? His defense team requested that Wade be allowed to put makeup on his facial tattoos because it might prejudice a jury against him. Duh. And this request was actually granted, but the defense supposedly chose not to use the makeup after all. I'm not buying the whole defense didn't choose to use the makeup. I'm guessing silly old Wade didn't want his artwork ignored because he's a Nazi genius like that.
Just like that. And I would have denied that. He wants to be big, bad, and tough and put it all out there on his face. Let the jury see it, what kind of person he really is.
And we sure did see it. But tats weren't the only thing keeping him busy. There were some additional charges on Mr. Special while he was in jail. Wade was involved with an attempted escape with his cellmate, 33-year-old Joseph Katz. When their 10 by 10 jail cell was searched, the window showed signs of tampering. The metal frame that held the window was removed and the thick security glass showed several severe cracks in it. According to the report, Wilson planned and instigated the escape attempt, but there was no way Katz could have been ignorant or not have taken part in it. I think they got that right.
Well, like you said earlier, duh.
Wade was also involved in a drug smuggling scheme where 6 additional outside criminals were arrested in connection to trying to get drugs inside the jail by dropping off a bag outside the facility at a specified location to be picked up later. But a drug-sniffing canine discovered the bag of narcotics and the scheme was thwarted. Dogs rock.
I love dogs.
Me too.
But could he have, picked up a book or learned how to cook? Something productive?
Yeah, anything. This guy doesn't seem too bright, though. Seriously.
But he's got a pretty face.
No, he don't. After his arrest, one of Wilson's former girlfriends, Kelly Matthews, spoke out on TikTok about dating Wilson after meeting him online in 2018. She said Wilson also tried to call her from jail, but she blocked the jail's number. Is that a thing for people to go on TikTok and give statements about how they've been abused? Seems kind of odd to me.
I wouldn't want people to know I dated a psychopath. Maybe she just wanted her 5 minutes of fame.
I kind of think it might have been the whole 5 minutes of fame thing because I was like, this is dumb. This doesn't make any sense. And, maybe she really did go through it and she's allowed to tell her story, but I don't know.
That's not the right platform.
The platform seems off. Yeah.
Yes.
According to Kelly, when they first met, Wade seemed sweet, smart, and charismatic. He also had no face tats, but his demeanor changed after he started using cocaine regularly. He became aggressive and following a fight over his drug use where she tried to check his bag for drugs, he kicked a door and she threw a kitchen table at him because that was the first time he had ever hit her. Damn, girl, don't play with her.
Is she one of the housewives of New Jersey?
She should be. She could be their bodyguard. Kelly claimed that on June 15th, following another incident, she went to the hospital and the staff took over 200 photos of her injuries. But she said she never saw the pics and could not claim them for evidence. That seems a little sketchy, doesn't it?
It does. I mean, she should be able to get her medical file.
Yeah, I completely agree. This man drove through a McDonald's while I was tied up in the back of my car, naked, bound, and gagged. Literally, I had a shirt tied around my face. I had leggings in my mouth, and my foot was broken because he slammed it in the door. So when I heard at the trial of him doing what he did to Christine Melton, tying her up with her own clothes, it brought back a lot of feelings for me, Kelly said.
That's just crazy. And driving through McDonald's, was he a little peckish after beating her up?
Hey, he exerted a lot of energy breaking her foot and
tying her up.
Clothes are thick. It's hard to tie them. Have you ever tried to tie clothes in a knot?
No, I'm not a psychopath.
Man, you just don't understand how hard it is to beat women up.
And thank goodness for that.
When officers spoke to Wade in jail regarding Kelly Matthews' claims, Wade told them that sexually, quote, She was into that kind of thing. End quote. They never charged Wade with anything regarding Matthews' claims. The trial finally began on June 10, 2024. There were many witnesses who came forward and claimed that Wade Wilson personally confessed to them that he had murdered the two victims. The defense team didn't even try to dispute the witnesses' testimony. Instead, they argued for diminished responsibility because, and let's just make it clear, this is his own defense team talking, quote, he's just whacked out of his mind, end quote.
Are they trying to get him locked up in a mental facility?
I think so.
Seems where that's going.
After only 2 hours of deliberations, the jury reached their verdict of guilty on all counts. Wilson faces the death penalty and was scheduled for sentencing on July 23, 2024. That was just last week. But a judge at the Lee County Courthouse ruled this past Friday that Wade's sentence will be delayed another month due to the defense attorney's requests. Wade's attorneys argued that the doctors who will be testifying on his behalf still need more time. One reason is because of scheduling conflicts, and the other is because of testing. One doctor needs to evaluate him and do brain scans, but that would require Wilson to go to an unsecured facility. His defense team is saying that he may have had brain injuries in his past, but the prosecution is saying these scans are not necessary because there's no proof that Wade ever even had a brain injury before he committed the crimes. The state attorney called the request for brain scans a, quote, fishing expedition, end quote. His defense is fighting back, saying that they, quote, feel there is enough evidence to have the brain scans done for him to be properly sentenced and have his rights protected, end quote.
Oh, that makes my blood boil. Rights? He should have zero rights. Seriously, where is that semi-truck?
I couldn't agree more, but unfortunately, even the bad guys have rights.
They have the right to blankety blank blank blank.
Beep, 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 beep. Wade made a request to be dressed in street clothes for the sentencing hearing, but the judge denied it. Seriously, Wade, only one reason you want to be in street clothes, buddy. Nice try.
Okay, now I may be stupid, but why?
You don't think he's going to make a run for the streets? He's not going to be in a prison outfit?
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
That's how I'm reading it. If I'm wrong, please somebody give me another reason.
I thought he was trying to do his, GQ thing.
Ew. Yeah, we're going to talk about that too. See, my brain didn't even go there. The judge also delayed a ruling about a new trial or an acquittal since the defense filed motions for both of those this week. Wilson is expected to be sentenced on August 27, 2024. A judge will decide whether Wilson will spend the rest of his life in prison or put to death. Wade Wilson remained emotionless in the courtroom. He's a vicious killer. It's a no brain scan required, no-brainer.
Well, Mr. Emotionless doesn't sound like he has much of one.
Nah.
But he's special.
Oh, he's so special, isn't he? Of course, it wouldn't be a notorious killer trial without lovesick women writing letters to the judge on Raggedy Andy's behalf, begging for the double murderer's life to be spared. Lee County Circuit Judge Nicholas R. Thompson is being weighed down with letters sent to the court by Wade's admirers. Here are a couple. I even hate to read these. They're so disgusting. Quote, as someone who cares unconditionally for Wade, I have deeply reflected on the gravity of the situation and impact of your decision. From a woman from Visalia, California. Well, let's see how that unconditional love works out when he wraps his huge hands around your neck while you peacefully sleep. But just keep loving him, sweetie.
What is wrong with this woman? What is wrong with the woman from Visalia?
She's making Visalia look really bad right now.
Exactly.
Here's another one. If you look past his tattoos to his face structure since being in prison, and medicated, he is healthier. His face is fuller compared to his booking picture, where his face is gaunt pale and he looks unhealthy. Now that's from a mother of 2 from Canada. And such sweet motherly instincts, right? So precious. Or maybe she's just trying to be thinner and she knows Wade can give her a long, lean body, like spaghetti. Idiot.
I need the number to Child Protective Services in Canada.
Seriously. Oh, woe is me. Okay. Last April, Governor Ron DeSantis signed a bill into law to allow a death penalty recommendation if at least 8 of the 12 jurors vote for it. 9 of the 12 jurors recommended Wade be put to death for Melton's murder, and 10 of the 12 also recommended death for Ruiz's murder. Thank goodness.
Thank goodness. And I think I read that Florida has the lowest number of jurors.
What do you mean of jurors?
That need to vote for the death penalty. They're one of the lowest, if not the lowest.
Because in some places it has to be unanimous.
So a side note, I read that the last meal before execution in Florida can't cost more than $40 and has to be locally sourced or prepared there.
Well, at least they're supporting local business. I think I'd heard the $40 limit somewhere as well. I don't remember, but I've heard that number before.
So no steak and lobster.
Heck no. Barely going to get Burger King at this point.
You could drive through McDonald's.
Right? If Wilson is sentenced to death, he will be one of 3 Florida men on death row under the new law. And if he is sentenced to death, he earned it, people. So let's hope bureaucracy or some weasel of a governor doesn't try to stop it. We will definitely update you all on what happens following the sentencing, which is next month. In the meantime, our hearts go out to the victims' loved ones still going through this unimaginable nightmare.
Poor families. The victim's family is always some that suffer the most.
I agree. They suffer forever.
Well, thank you for sharing this sick story.
Yeah, it's a pretty sick one.
Ugh. But it was enjoyable, and we hope that he gets... I'll take
It
that.
was not enjoyable. I love when you say it's enjoyable because it's so not.
We can only hope the best for Wade Wilson.
Oh, let's just hope Wade Wilson gets what he deserves.
Well, thank you all for listening. We hope you take care, and don't forget to let your grimaginations run wild. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
We would just like to thank you all for sharing your time with us. And if you'd like to send us your creepy little grim bits, we would love to hear your personal stories, interests, and suggestions. Please email them to grimwitwithdimwits@gmail.com. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram @grimwitwithdimwits, X @grimwitwithdimwits, and Facebook grimwitwithdimwits. And please join us every Monday for new episodes, and feel free to share us with your grim-loving friends.
And we would really appreciate if you would take a minute to rate and review. 5-star ratings go a long way, and they would really help us out. Until then, we would love it if you'd come back next week to delve with us into the strange and unusual things we just can't wrap our skulls around.